Rumors have a strange way of traveling in the galaxy. Sometimes they move through official channels, coded transmissions, encrypted reports. But sometimes, they drift through space like ghostly whispers passed from one frightened captain to another. And this time, the whispers all spoke of one thing: humans. No one could say how it began. Perhaps it started with a trader who saw something massive orbiting Mars. Maybe it was a maintenance drone that caught a glimpse of something it wasn't supposed to. Whatever the source, the message spread faster than light itself. The humans are building something colossal. At first, the galaxy laughed. Humanity had only joined the interstellar community 300 years ago. They were newcomers, enthusiastic, bold, but still small compared to the great empires of the stars. The Arkan dynasty had ruled for 7,000 years. The Karth dominion stretched across 10 sectors. The Valen Republic's fleet alone could crush Earth's entire navy. Humans were known for curiosity, not power. For emotion, not control. So when the first reports came in about a ship the size of a continent, most dismissed it as another human exaggeration, one of those wild, emotional dreams they always chased. But then came the pictures. The first images were blurry, distant shots taken by long-range telescopes from neutral territory. They showed a dark object floating above Mars, larger than anything seen before. At first it looked like a shadow, but when scientists enhanced the image, they saw its shape. Long, sharp, and impossibly sleek, like a blade forged from darkness itself, and stamped along its side in glowing white letters was a single name: Eternum. That one word sent shockwaves through the stars. In the old human tongue, it meant eternal. Every listening post went on alert. Spies were sent. Fleets moved closer to Seoul, pretending to be on training maneuvers. Even the Galactic Council called an emergency session. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy didn't laugh at humans. It trembled. In the capital of the Arkan Empire, the High Strategist read the reports with unease. "It cannot be true," he muttered, his claws tapping against the table. "No world without our permission could build a structure of this scale. Not without violating Treaty Code 11. But the reports were consistent. Energy readings around Mars were off the charts. Gravitational anomalies indicated a structure over 50 kilometers long. Whatever humanity was building, it wasn't just another ship. It was something else, and something beyond reason. The Valen Republic called it madness. The Karth Dominion called it a weapon of arrogance. The Council called it a threat to galactic peace. But deep inside, every leader felt the same cold fear. What if the humans had actually done it? Meanwhile, on Earth and Mars, humanity said nothing. The space around Mars was locked down. No one entered, no one left. The project had no official name in government records. But workers whispered that the Eternum wasn't simply a warship. It was humanity's answer to being ignored, attacked, and underestimated. They remembered what happened a decade earlier, the tragedy of Haven 3. Haven 3 had been a peaceful colony world, far from any border conflict. Families lived there, children played under twin suns, until one night a swarm of alien raiders, the Voro, descended on it. They burned the cities and glassed the surface. 3 million souls erased in a single day. The Galactic Council promised justice. They formed a committee. They sent messages of deep regret, but no one came to help. No fleets, no defenses, nothing. And so, Earth made a silent vow. Never again. Admiral Rhea Solarin stood on the observation deck of the Mars shipyard, staring at the shape slowly taking form beyond the glass. She had seen hundreds of ships in her lifetime, but nothing like this. Its surface reflected the red light of Mars like a mirror made of night. Even half-finished, it radiated power and sorrow. Her voice was soft, yet carried weight. "We lost 3 million on Haven 3. The Council called it a tragedy. I call it a lesson." Behind her stood engineers, officers, and soldiers, the best of humanity. They didn't smile. They didn't cheer. They worked in silence, each person driven by a memory of someone they had lost. The Eternum wasn't born from pride. It was born from pain. Every bolt, every circuit, every piece of armor carried a story, a promise to never be helpless again. And so, while the rest of the galaxy whispered and feared, the humans built. They worked day and night, their eyes lit by the glow of determination. From the smallest child to the oldest veteran, everyone on Earth knew what was happening, even if no one dared speak its name aloud. News channels were quiet. Governments denied involvement. But in the hearts of billions, one truth burned bright. The Eternum would be their guardian. Across the galaxy, alien leaders argued. Should they intervene now before it was too late, or should they wait and watch? But deep down, all of them feared the same thing. What if the humans had finally learned to master what everyone else had long forgotten? Unity through pain, because humanity had always been unpredictable. They could be fragile, emotional, reckless, but when pushed to the edge, when cornered by tragedy, they became something unstoppable. The galaxy had seen human courage before. But this was something new, something terrifying. And so, while the stars glittered in silent witness, the humans kept building their colossal ship, the Eternum, a creation born not from hate, but from heartbreak. And in that quiet, determined work, the first chapter of a new legend began. A legend that would one day make the entire galaxy tremble. Humans didn't build the Eternum for power. They didn't build it to conquer or to intimidate. They built it for a reason that echoed through every corner of Earth, Mars, and the colonies scattered across the stars. 10 years earlier, humanity had faced a horror that no council, no empire, no fleet could stop. The colony world Haven 3 had been obliterated. The Voro raiders had come without warning, their ships casting shadows over the cities like dark wings. Fires burned across continents, oceans boiled. 3 million people vanished in a single night. Families, children, scientists, artists, workers, dreamers, all gone. Earth had watched through surveillance feeds, powerless. The Galactic Council had promised action, promised justice. And yet, nothing came. Not a single fleet appeared in time. Not a single warship blocked the Voro. The Council sent formal condolences, elegant words, and official reports. But words couldn't bring back the dead. Words couldn't hold a child in a parent's arms again. Humans remembered. From the ashes of grief, a vow was born. Not a promise whispered in secret. A vow shouted across the solar system. Never again. Never would humanity be helpless while someone destroyed lives. Never again would they rely on others who would not act. Humanity would become the shield the galaxy had failed to provide. And so, the Eternum was conceived. Admiral Rhea Solarin, a veteran of countless campaigns and survivor of her own personal tragedies, led the project. Her hair was silver now, streaked with the kind of gray that comes not from age alone but from witnessing unbearable loss. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, had stared into the void and returned with fire. "If no one will protect us," she said in a voice that carried across the silent decks of the shipyard, "then we will protect ourselves. So completely no one will ever dare hurt us again." It was not an order. It was a commandment. The Eternum was more than a ship. It was a statement, a warning, and a promise rolled into one colossal machine. Its hull was built from adaptive alloys that could repair themselves and shift in strength under pressure. Its engines could warp space in short bursts, allowing it to appear where enemies thought it impossible. And at its heart lay the Helios core, a weapon capable of shattering moons, melting asteroid belts, and turning fleets into nothing more than stardust. But every piece of technology, every deadly feature was married to purpose. This ship was not a symbol of tyranny. It was a symbol of remembrance. Workers whispered in hushed tones as they assembled the colossal machine. "Every rivet has a name," one engineer said. "Every panel remembers someone who was lost." And they weren't exaggerating. Across the corridors, engraved into hidden plates and internal structures, were the names of all the victims of Haven 3 and other forgotten tragedies. Each beam, each wire carried a memory, a heartbeat, a promise. Even the youngest technician, barely old enough to remember the attack, understood the weight of the work. When asked why she spent days perfecting a calibration she would never see in combat, she simply said, "So no one else cries like we did." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, leaders were growing frantic. The Karth Dominion convened an emergency war council. The Arkan dynasty summoned their best strategists. The Valen Republic dispatched spies and saboteurs. Every alien power could feel the tremor of fear, even without seeing the ship. But the humans didn't flinch. They didn't shout threats. They didn't fire the first shot. They built in quiet determination a monument to survival and grief. The Eternum's silence was louder than any roar. Every alien fleet moving to inspect it sensed the quiet, and it unsettled them more than open aggression ever could. "Why do they do nothing?" demanded a Valen admiral over a secure channel. "Why let us prepare?
Why let us panic?"
No one knew the answer, and the uncertainty made fear spread like wildfire. On Earth, the Council of Humanity monitored every stage of construction. They were not cruel or vengeful. They were vigilant and determined. "We are not building a weapon of war," one scientist explained. "We are building a shield, forged from loss, from love, from the pain we refuse to forget." And it was true. The Eternum was designed to fight, yes, but only if the galaxy forced humanity to. It was a warship built in the image of grief, tempered by hope. Admiral Rhea often walked the corridors alone, observing the work silently. She knew the ship's power would terrify. She knew its reputation would spread before it ever left orbit. And yet she carried no pride. She carried responsibility. For every name etched into the ship, for every life lost, for every tear shed across the colonies, she felt the weight of their memory pressing on her shoulders. One night, under the twin moons of Mars, she whispered to herself, "This is not for revenge. This is for remembrance. This is for the living." And in the distance, the Eternum's hull gleamed softly in the Martian sunlight, like a sleeping giant, waiting for the day it might be called upon. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for protection. The galaxy, unaware of this truth, continued to murmur. They assumed humans were reckless, dangerous, ambitious. They didn't understand grief. They didn't understand determination born of loss. But humans did. And as the shadows of alien fleets began to stir at the edge of Sol space, as the whispers of fear and speculation grew louder, one truth remained clear. The Eternum was coming. And when it did, it would not be for hate. It would be for humanity. The first chapter of the legend had ended with construction, but the second chapter, the awakening, was about to begin. The galaxy had never felt this kind of fear before. Not the fear of warships, not the fear of invading armies, not even the fear of death. This was something different. This was fear of the unknown, fear of a force no one could predict, no one could stop, and no one fully understood. Every empire, every council, every fleet commander felt it the moment news of the Eternum reached them. And now, they had to act. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, alien leaders argued like they never had before. The Karth Dominion's emissary slammed a clawed hand on the table. "This is unacceptable. Humanity is too young. They have no right to wield such power." The Arkan Emperor, usually calm and unshakable, leaned forward, his scaled face tight with worry. "Do you see what they have done? They are not asking permission. They are not negotiating. They have built a weapon beyond imagination. If this ship fires, half the fleets in this quadrant are gone before anyone can respond." The Valen Republic's representative, a slender figure with translucent skin that glowed faintly under the chamber lights, whispered almost to herself, "And yet they have not moved. They sit in silence waiting. That is what terrifies me most." It was true. The humans had made no aggressive move. They hadn't sent threats. They hadn't tested their weapons on small targets or fired in warning. They had simply built, and they had waited. That waiting was louder than cannon fire. Admiral Rhea Solarin watched the galaxy's response from her command center on Mars. She had expected fear. She had even expected hostility. But the scale of panic, the way empires scrambled and muttered, surprised even her. Still, she said nothing. She allowed the galaxy to talk, to plan, to worry. Humanity's policy was clear. Do not strike first. Let the galaxy realize that the Eternum's purpose was protection, not domination. But the galaxy, it seemed, could not see beyond its own fear. Fleet movements were tracked in real time. Every alien ship entering Sol space was logged. Every transmission intercepted. Every formation noted. Humanity prepared quietly like a patient predator for the day the galaxy might force their hand. And yet, even with all the preparation, Rhea felt a twinge of sorrow. Fear could provoke war. Misunderstanding could destroy lives. The galaxy had already judged humanity before they had spoken a single word. Meanwhile, across countless worlds, whispers grew into panic. Merchants closed trading routes near Sol. Academics wrote warnings in frantic reports. Pilots refused contracts that brought them near human space. Prophets of doom emerged, preaching that humanity had gone mad, that their warship would one day erase planets for sport. And yet, the humans themselves remained calm. Workers on Mars hummed quietly as they installed the final components of the Eternum. Engineers calibrated engines, checked shields, and tested the Helios core. Soldiers trained tirelessly, not in aggression, but in discipline. Every human aboard, from the youngest technician to Admiral Rhea herself, understood one truth. The galaxy's fear did not justify preemptive violence. They would act only if the galaxy forced them to. Back in the council chambers, debate raged. "Strike now," shouted one Karth commander. "If we wait, it will be too late. Their power grows with every passing day. We cannot allow this ship to awaken fully." A Valen diplomat raised a slender hand. "And if we attack, we risk the annihilation of our fleets."
Do you not see?
"This ship is not like anything we have faced. It is legendary. We have no guarantee we can survive its first strike." The Arkan Emperor leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Then what do you suggest? We do nothing and hope they share our desire for peace?" The chamber fell silent. No one had an answer, because they all understood the truth that Rhea Solarin already knew. Humans were unpredictable, yes. But humans were not mindless. They could build weapons, yes. They could destroy fleets, yes. But they could also understand loss, sorrow, and responsibility. It was a kind of power the galaxy had never seen before. On Mars, Rhea walked along the observation deck, her hand resting lightly on the polished rail. Through the glass, she could see the Eternum gleaming softly against the red dust of the planet. The great ship was calm, silent, immense, and like a mountain in orbit. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "Let them come. Let them see. Let them understand before it is too late." Her words carried weight, not of threat, but of warning. That power without mercy was dangerous, and mercy without power was meaningless. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the whispers began to change. No longer were humans called reckless or naive. Now they were called something new, a force to respect, a species that could not be ignored, a presence that would shape the future whether the galaxy wanted it or not. The first step of the human legend had begun. Fear had awakened, but humans had not yet spoken. And when they did, the galaxy would understand that the Eternum was more than a weapon. It was a promise born of grief, forged in loss, and tempered with the unyielding will to survive. For now, humanity waited, the galaxy panicked, and history prepared to remember both. The first strike did not come from the humans. It came from fear. Across Sol space, alien fleets had gathered. Dozens of capital ships, hundreds of cruisers, and thousands of fighters from the Karth Dominion, the Arkan dynasty, and the Valen Republic moved in formation. Their orders were clear: neutralize the threat or die trying. They called it a preemptive strike, but deep down they all knew it was panic disguised as strategy. Admiral Rhea Solarin watched their approach from the command deck of the Eternum. The ship was silent, massive, and gleaming in the dim light of the Martian orbit. The human crew moved with calm precision. Every action rehearsed 1,000 times, every system checked and rechecked. No one spoke of retaliation. No one spoke of attack. Not yet. Rhea's voice was quiet but firm over the intercom. Remember who we are. We defend, we do not provoke. Let them come. Let them see. The alien fleets opened fire first. Energy beams streaked across space, lighting up the void like shooting stars. Explosions erupted in the distance as smaller vessels were vaporized. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a deadly display of raw power. And then the Eternum reacted. It did not move. It did not fire first. Its shield shimmered into existence, bending the incoming energy around the hull. Beams collided with invisible walls, twisting into arcs of light that vanished into nothing. Every shot the aliens fired, no matter how powerful, simply disappeared. Panic began to spread through their ranks. "Impossible!" shouted a Karth commander over the comms. "Our weapons. They cannot reach it." The Eternum responded in its own time. It did not fire wildly. It did not unleash chaos. Its beam was singular, precise, and controlled. A slice of blinding light from the Helios core. The first strike cut through the outer formations of the enemy fleet, vaporizing several cruisers instantly. Fighters caught in its path were gone in an instant. And then it paused. No one could understand the restraint. The galaxy had expected a warship, a monster, a weapon of unrelenting destruction. Instead, humanity displayed control. Power held in check, every alien fleet trembling under its might, and still the humans did not advance. Across Mars, engineers and technicians watched the battle unfold on the screens. Many had never fired a weapon in their lives. Some were too young to remember Haven 3, and yet every person aboard the Eternum understood the responsibility they carried. "We will not destroy unless forced," one young technician whispered. "We will not become what they fear us to be." Rhea nodded silently. The galaxy could panic, could threaten, could attack. Humanity would respond only to protect itself, and in that protection, it would show a mercy the galaxy had forgotten. And then, a human voice echoed through the communications channels. Not a shout of victory, but a statement of calm. "We defend our homes. We do not hunt. Leave now and you may live." The words carried weight that resonated across every alien vessel. Some commanders hesitated. Some ordered retreat. Others, driven by fear and pride, pressed forward. The Eternum responded again, not with indiscriminate fire, but with precision. Every beam and every pulse targeted only the ships that threatened immediate harm. Entire formations were split, immobilized, or destroyed, but only just enough to force a stop. The galaxy, for the first time, understood what humans had built. It was not just a warship. It was a weapon of control, yes. A force of destruction, yes. But it was also a testament to thought, restraint, and understanding. Alien leaders realized that they had underestimated humanity. They had assumed the newcomers would panic, fight recklessly, or cower. Instead, humans had built a colossus, not to dominate but to protect, not to spread terror but to defend what was theirs. "We misjudged them," muttered the Archon Emperor, staring at the holographic feed of his crippled fleet. "They are not like us. They are something else, and something else indeed." Back on the Eternum, Rhea stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the broken enemy formations. She felt no pride. She felt no triumph. She felt sorrow for the fleets that had tried to annihilate her people without understanding. She thought of Haven 3 and the millions who had died because no one came to stop it. We are not their enemy, she whispered, almost to herself. But we will never be helpless again. The battle ended as quickly as it began. Alien fleets retreated, battered, and humiliated, leaving Mars' orbit in silence once more. The galaxy had seen humanity's power and it had trembled, but no one had yet understood the heart behind it. The Eternum had spoken. It had shown strength beyond reckoning, and it had shown mercy beyond expectation. And somewhere deep in the void of space, a new truth began to spread. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. A new legend had begun. The Eternum drifted silently above Mars. Its massive form reflected the soft glow of the planet below, a monument of power, grief, and determination. The battle had ended. The alien fleets had retreated. Space was quiet again. Yet on the command deck, silence did not bring relief. It brought weight. Admiral Rhea Solarin stood alone, hands resting lightly on the railing, staring at the endless void. The stars twinkled, indifferent to the pain and loss that had forged her people. Even after demonstrating their strength, even after forcing the galaxy to tremble, she felt no triumph, because power, no matter how great, could not erase memory. Her mind drifted back to Haven 3. She could see the smoke rising from the cities, hear the screams of the people, feel the helplessness that had settled over the colonies like a dark shadow. That memory had been the spark that ignited the creation of the Eternum. Every rivet, every shield, every pulse weapon was a tribute to those lost. Every piece carried a name, a story, a heartbeat that refused to fade. Rhea had walked its corridors countless times, feeling the weight of history pressing down. She had watched young engineers weep quietly as they engraved names into hidden plates inside the ship. She had felt their grief, their anger, and their determination as if it were her own. "We are not building a weapon to destroy," she whispered to herself. "We are building a promise that no one else will suffer like we did." The crew, though weary from the first encounter with alien fleets, moved with precision. Every action was deliberate, every decision thoughtful. The humans aboard the Eternum were aware of the eyes of the galaxy upon them. Every observer, every alien fleet, every distant council member watched and waited to see what they would do next. And the humans chose patience. They did not strike again. They did not chase the fleeing fleets. They did not boast of their power. They remained in orbit, silent, vigilant, waiting for the next moment, whatever it might bring. "They have control," muttered a young communications officer. "They could destroy us all, but they don't. They care." Yes, they cared. That was what made humanity terrifying. Not the weapons, not the size of the ship, not the destruction they could bring. It was the restraint, the thoughtfulness, the understanding that power without mercy was meaningless. Rhea walked the observation deck late into the Martian night, staring out at the stars. She felt the weight of her responsibility. The galaxy feared them. Some feared what humans might do. Others feared what humans had already built. And somewhere deep inside, Rhea feared that power might one day change her people. She remembered a lesson taught to her by her mentor long ago. Great power tests the soul. It does not create it. She wondered, not for the first time, if they were strong enough, morally, emotionally, to carry the burden of the Eternum. Could a species that had been underestimated, ignored, and attacked rise to the challenge without becoming the very thing it had fought against? The answer lay in every technician who worked quietly, in every soldier who trained tirelessly, in every human who had lost someone and refused to forget. Humanity had learned not only how to survive, they had learned how to care, how to balance sorrow with purpose, how to wield power with responsibility. Back on Earth, Messages arrived from every colony. Some expressed relief at the humans' restraint. Others begged for protection. Rhea read each one silently. Each plea reminded her of why the Eternum existed and why it could never act recklessly. It was not fear that drove them now. It was memory. And memory, Rhea knew, was stronger than terror. The galaxy, however, still misunderstood. Fleet commanders debated endlessly, scientists speculated, diplomats argued. The image of humans as reckless, dangerous newcomers had been shattered, but many could not yet see the truth. Humans did not build a legendary warship to dominate. They built it to defend, to remember, and to survive. "They are not like us," the Archon Emperor said quietly, staring at the simulations of the battle. "They are something else, something we have never faced before. We must respect it, or we will regret it." Even the strongest voices of aggression hesitated. Humanity had shown that they could destroy fleets, yes, but they had also shown that they would not destroy without cause. They had demonstrated mercy, discipline, and intelligence, a combination that no alien species had expected, and none had seen coming. Rhea returned to the command center and watched the ship systems hum in quiet perfection. The Eternum was ready. It could strike, and it could survive. But for now, it waited. She whispered again, softly, almost a prayer. "Let them understand who we are. Let them know we do not seek war. Let them remember mercy before they remember fear." And in that quiet moment, the Eternum was no longer just a machine. It was the heartbeat of humanity. Grief made tangible. Determination made unstoppable. Mercy made legendary. The galaxy had seen their power. The galaxy had felt their restraint. And somewhere deep inside every leader and observer, a new understanding began to take root. Humans were not a threat to conquer. Humans were a force to respect, a species that had suffered, learned, and risen above. And in that understanding, the legend of the Eternum, and of humanity, had only just begun. The fleets had returned. Not cautiously this time, not probing, not curious. They had come fully prepared. Dozens of capital ships, hundreds of cruisers, thousands of fighters, all converging on Sol. Every major power had joined the effort. Even the so-called neutral systems sent their warships, fearing what humanity might become if unchecked. From orbit, the Eternum watched silently. Its dark hull reflected the faint glow of Earth, a reminder of what was being defended. On the command deck, Admiral Rhea Solarin's eyes scanned the approaching formations. Each ship, each beam of light, each sudden movement of the enemy made her heart tighten, not with fear, but with the knowledge that millions of lives depended on her judgment. "Everyone brace for engagement," she said softly, though no one panicked. The human crew had been trained for this moment their entire lives. They knew fear, but they also knew purpose. For humanity, this was not about victory. This was about survival. This was about protecting what remained and showing the galaxy that humans would not be subjugated or underestimated again. The alien fleets opened fire simultaneously. The void lit up with flashes of energy, explosions tearing through the first lines of fighters. Even the largest cruisers shuddered under the impact of the Eternum's adaptive shields. Every blast bent around the ship, every missile dissolved before it reached the hull. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Some commanders hesitated, fearing the wrath of a ship that seemed invincible. Others pressed forward, believing their numbers would overwhelm. But Rhea did not act rashly. She understood that every decision she made would define the future of her people. The Eternum's weapons remained dormant, the Helios core glowing softly, a heart of potential that had yet to strike. "We will not fire first," she whispered to herself. We are not destroyers, we are protectors. Then came the moment when diplomacy failed. An Arkan battle cruiser veered too close, cutting the formation of human satellites. A volley of missiles screamed toward Mars. Rhea's hand moved to the console and the Eternum responded, but not with full force. Only the necessary shields engaged, the threat neutralized with surgical precision. Not a single life was wasted unnecessarily. The rest of the galaxy froze. They had expected chaos, blood, and destruction. Instead, they saw restraint. A disciplined, controlled response from a species they had dismissed as naive. It was terrifying in its own way. They are different, muttered a Valen admiral, staring at the displays. They fight, but not for pride, not for power, for something greater. And what was greater than survival? What was greater than the promise to protect those who could not protect themselves? Rhea felt the weight of every life aboard the ship, every human life in the colonies, every child lost on Haven 3. She remembered the faces of those who had perished, the silent cries of the families that remained. This was why the Eternum existed, to prevent the galaxy from repeating the mistakes of the past. She looked out at the approaching fleets, a sea of alien technology ready to destroy everything. And yet she did not flinch. She saw the fear in their formation, the hesitation, the unspoken understanding that humanity was not to be underestimated. "We will not be cowed," she whispered. "We will not kneel." And with that, the Eternum's presence alone shifted the balance, not by firing indiscriminately, but by showing the galaxy the truth. Humans were not reckless. Humans were not to be feared for ambition alone. Humans were to be respected. The standoff lasted hours. The enemy fleets pressed closer, testing, probing, daring humanity to act. And for hours, the humans waited. They waited not out of fear, but out of choice. The galaxy was on edge. The tension could be felt in every communication channel, every command post, every monitoring station across multiple systems. Then came the first official transmission from Rhea, broadcasted to every fleet in orbit. "We are not your enemies, but we will not surrender. Leave Sol space. Withdraw your fleets and you may live in peace." The silence that followed was deafening. Some fleets paused, uncertain. Some faltered, questioning their orders. Others, driven by pride and fear, attacked. But every attempt to harm the Eternum was met with precision, control, and restraint. The humans striking only to protect, only to defend, only enough to force retreat. By the end of the day, the alien fleets were in disarray. Some had retreated, some had been damaged, many had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humanity was not a species to underestimate, and the Eternum was not a warship to challenge without consequence. And still, Rhea did not celebrate. She walked the observation deck alone, staring at the stars. "We have survived," she whispered. "But at what cost to our souls if we forget mercy?" The galaxy had witnessed a species that combined unimaginable power with discipline, grief with purpose, and strength with mercy. The legend of humanity was no longer a whisper. It was a truth written across the stars, and it would echo for generations to come. Somewhere deep in her heart, Rhea knew the final chapter was coming. A chapter where humanity's strength and wisdom would be tested like never before. But for now, they had stood. They had survived. And they had proven to the galaxy that humans were not just another species. Humans were a force, unbreakable, relentless, and guided by heart as much as by power. The legend of the Eternum was alive, and the galaxy had no choice but to remember it. Silence settled over soul space like a heavy blanket. The alien fleets had withdrawn. The Eternum floated in orbit above Mars, its massive hull reflecting the red planet below, bathed in the pale light of distant stars. It was a ship that had shown the galaxy its power, yet had spared lives wherever it could. Admiral Rhea Solaran stood on the observation deck, her eyes tracing the faint trails of retreating fleets. She could feel the weight of the moment, the gravity of history pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity had survived its first true test, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy's perception forever. But survival alone was not enough. Humanity had proven strength, yes, but what they had shown the galaxy, more than any weapon, more than any display of force, was their heart, their mercy, their discipline, their refusal to be swayed by fear, hatred, or pride. Power without wisdom, Rhea whispered, is nothing. Mercy without strength is weakness. We have found the balance. Across countless star systems, the news spread like wildfire. Some reports were cautious, others alarmed, and many filled with awe. Every empire, every fleet, every colony knew the humans were no longer to be underestimated. Stories began to circulate, whispered tales of a ship that could destroy worlds yet chose restraint, of a species that had survived tragedy and transformed it into purpose. Children on distant planets asked their parents in wide-eyed wonder, "Is it true, Mother? Did the humans really stop fleets with just one ship?" "Yes," the parents would answer. And they did not fire to kill unnecessarily. They fought with their hearts as well as their minds. Legends were being born not from conquest but from courage, not from fear but from honor. On the Eternum, Rhea walked through the ship's quiet corridors. The crew moved about with calm efficiency, performing maintenance, checking systems, and preparing for the unknown. Every person aboard carried memories, of family lost, of friends gone, of planets destroyed. And yet they worked together in unity, their grief transformed into purpose. She paused before the central hall, where hidden panels engraved with names told the stories of Haven 3 and countless other tragedies. She traced a finger over the names, each one a life remembered. "We fight not because we want war," she said softly. "We fight because we remember. We fight because we refuse to be powerless again." The Eternum was more than steel and circuitry. It was memory made tangible. It was grief transformed into resilience. It was a promise forged in fire. Humanity would endure, and they would protect. Meanwhile, the galaxy adjusted. Fleets returned to distant patrols. Scientists recalculated strategies, and diplomats reconsidered treaties. They had witnessed humans' restraint. They had seen the choice not to destroy even when provoked. And slowly, the whispers changed from fear to respect. "The humans," a Karth admiral murmured to his aide. "They are not a threat to conquer. They are a force to reckon with, yes, but also a force to admire. If we wage war against them, we do not just fight a fleet. We fight memory, purpose, and will." It was the first time any alien leader admitted admiration alongside fear. It was the first time anyone truly understood that humans were unlike anything the galaxy had known. Rhea returned to the observation deck one last time that night. Mars glimmered below, calm, silent, and waiting. The stars stretched endlessly, vast and indifferent, yet somehow human eyes saw meaning in their patterns. The Eternum floated there, massive, quiet, legendary, a guardian that did not boast, a weapon that did not kill without cause. "We have done what the galaxy could not," she whispered. "We have protected. We have endured. We have remembered." She knew the battles were not over. The galaxy would test humanity again. But the Eternum had set a precedent. Humans could not be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. And they had done so with heart, discipline, and mercy. Centuries later, the story of the Eternum became myth. Children on distant worlds grew up hearing of the human warship that could have destroyed fleets but chose to protect. Scholars debated its tactics, poets sang of its restraint, and every alien race remembered the day the galaxy trembled and then learned respect. Even in whispers, the story carried a lesson. Power alone does not define a species. Memory, grief, and the choice to act with compassion define true greatness. And somewhere, far beyond the eyes of the galaxy, the Eternum drifted, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a symbol. A symbol of humanity's courage, humanity's mercy, and humanity's unbreakable will. The galaxy had underestimated humans once. It would not forget again. "We are not just survivors," Rhea whispered to the stars. "We are a legend, and we will always remember those who made us strong." In the end, humanity did not just create a legendary warship. They created a legend of the heart, forged in tragedy, tempered by grief, and eternal as the stars themselves. And the galaxy, for all its fear and pride, could do nothing but remember. The Eternum was gone from the headlines, yet it lived in every story, every whispered tale, every child's question, and every commander's careful strategy. It had become more than a machine. It had become a legacy. And humanity had shown the galaxy that strength without mercy is hollow. But mercy with strength is legendary.